Hello, everybody loves Raymond fans. Tom Caltabiano here on our Sunday live. Welcome, everybody. All the followers are being told that we are starting a live video, and we are. I'm going to say hello to a few people. Hello, Paula. Paula, you made a comment which was great about the alignment of having somebody who takes a lot of pictures, myself, being on a show from beginning to end. And that is a really good confluence of events to give us a lot of coverage of a show. And I always say, if the show was not a hit, I would just have a few thousand pictures of my friend's show that was not a hit. Looking forward to today. Hello, Gil. Family mom forever. Video is frozen again. Is anybody else experiencing my video being frozen again? Because it looks good here. Hello, Dragon. Butterfly in New Jersey. Hello, Raymond fans around the world. Yes, looking good. Hello, everybody. Excited for George to be joining us today. Hello, everybody. Hello, Window Poons. Yes, Window Poons, you can always watch last week. You did not meet. You missed some great photos if you go back from one of the episodes, and I almost can't remember. Thank you, Gil. So maybe it is not frozen going out to the world, but only on a few people receiving it. So I posted. Now I don't know why two of those photos showed up dark, but I will show you what those photos were. Great. Hello, everybody. Hello, Bobby in Hawaii. Yeah, I'm looking, by the way, looking through those old photos with those old scripts with the Polaroids of the cast members is so great for me. I'm sure it's great for you guys too, but I'm seeing them for the first time. And so it's really awesome to see that. And now I put a little Easter egg, as they say, but it's not really that hidden. If you look under the tags, you're going to see a link to Pop TV. Pop TV did a behind the scenes thing of behind the story behind Everybody Loves Raymond. So I'm curious, for those of you in the UK or in Australia, are you able to view that? So you should be able to copy. You should be able to copy that link, because you can't just click on it in Instagram. You should be able to copy that link, paste it into your browser, and then it might come up. But I'm worried that it won't come up overseas. All right, George, little message from George. Let me see if George, hold on one second. Let's see, George, let's see. George, you're on your iPhone, and are you joining as, here, let me do this, inviting George. Yeah, George, if it's not, you might want to kill the app and start it up again if you're having trouble. Let's see here. Going through there. Hello, everybody. Let me scroll through pictures. Hello, Joanne Baker in Rumford, Essex, where it is 10 p.m. in the UK. That's awesome. Yes, Donnell, you saw it. Karen, you can't open the link. If you remember, you got to copy it into a browser. You can't just click on it, because nothing will happen if you just click on it. Do we have more, Gary? Do we have more Polaroids of the cast? Yes, I have about, I would say, 2,000 more Polaroids of the cast, which I will be showing when we don't have guests. All right, let's look for George. Let's see if George can come in. So, George, who we were texting earlier. So, there we go. I posted some pictures of Ricky's room, and we're gonna, it won't play. Okay, Karen, good to know. So you might not be able to watch the Pop TV, the story behind Everybody Loves Raymond, on an overseas server. So we'll try. Tom, we need a coffee table book with all the pics. Yes, we have published one. It's called Everybody Loves Raymond, Our Family Album. You can still find it probably on, well, you can definitely find it on Amazon, probably on eBay, etc. All right, let's see if George, the record, yeah, George, so if you do a restart and try again, and are you signing on from the Guy Lagostino? For those of you that are watching the posts, you can see that George has a very funny site, the Guy Lagostino Files. So let me try inviting him. Let's see that. Great. So I'm going to show you now the photos that came up dark. They are, and I posted them because George was part of it. It's a story that I told. It happened in the writer's room. Ray was eating a salad, and all of a sudden he started just reacting like he spitting and a bit over the top, until we saw that he had a dragonfly had flown and landed in his mozzarella cheese. And so as he was eating, slowly he was like, what? That's weird. And he realized that he had eaten almost completely to the dragonfly, which was in his salad. Now, you never want the star of the show to, and here, people, those are squeamish, look away. That is a dragonfly that is at the bottom of an aluminum plate, and that's mozzarella cheese around it. And the other photo, that's actually, we were in the writer's room alone. That's Tucker. I think the image is reversed. So Tucker's on the far right. That's the back of George, and that's Ray, because it was quite a big event for Ray at lunchtime to get a little bit of a dragonfly in his salad. All right, let's see what George is saying. Yeah, so George, just request to learn, hit to join. You just hit the one icon, and let's see here. Let's see this. Great. Yeah, so Ray, Ray is very particular about his food, and he's a little bit squeamish. He was using Perel way before it was hip to use Perel. So the idea that there was that in his salad was, of all the people to have gotten it, for Ray to get it, and I was the only one in the writer's room. It was just me and Ray in the writer's room for whatever reason. Hello, Chicago. And so they tracked it down. So we called George in and say, hey, George, Ray didn't order a salad with dragonfly, so this is a mistake. So let's see this. Yes, okay. And so George came in right away. And as I've said before, we all love George. Everybody wants to see George because George, oh, there's George. George spooling the left side of your head looking good, George.
Well, I'm pouring a drink, so give me a break, will you?
How is your Wi-Fi, George? Okay there?
Seems pretty good. Yeah, I can hear you. It was good last time. Are you okay?
All right, great. You look a little pixelated, but maybe it is from your drinking, George.
It could be. I'm got some wild turkey here.
Welcome. The Wild Turkey 101, George, packs quite a punch. Oh, that is.
Yeah, well.
So right now, the sound guy, Yeah, the sound goes past. So yeah, we are. People are even questioning if you even have Wi-Fi. So,
yeah, I do. It should be fine. I don't know what the.
All right. All right. You're very pixelated, George. We're getting a lot of pixelation, and I assume that I'm. Yeah. So, George, do you want to? Are you? Yeah. Yeah, you're pixelated and spooling. The challenges of live.
Yeah, right.
George, are you on your Wi-Fi? You've paid the bill. Why don't you, George, maybe try and rejoin. Good. All right. Maybe try and rejoin.
How do I do that? All right, so go off completely and try again.
Yeah, I would go. Are you an iPhone, George?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would, yeah, just rejoin again because it's really.
So go out everything and start over. Yeah. I'm going out everything.
Sorry,
and starting
George.
Over. Okay.
People are dying to hear your stories. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. So. George has a lot of pseudonyms there. All right, so yeah, so George, I'll just because we touched upon the story last time. George comes into the writers' room, and he's the one that's responsible for getting the lunch, and which is why we loved him. And he also wrote some episodes. But early on, George is a young guy. He was a production assistant, and then he became like the writers' production assistant, and one of those things he would come into the writers' room every day at like 10:30, and he would hand out photocopies of menus, and then you would circle what you want, your name, hand it back to George, and then your lunch would appear in front of you at lunchtime. And one of the things that Phil was very much about was just being productive in the time that you're there, because a lot of shows would they would show up and they wouldn't be in the writers' room, and then they'd start writing at 4 p.m, and then they would kind of get going. And Phil was like, "We're going to be here from 10 to 6. Let's work from 10 to 6." So let's see how George does this time in our joining. Okay, George.
Better?
Better.
Better, all right.
Much better. Okay. Yeah, because it wasn't just that you were a little pixelated. I would hear every fourth word you were saying. So.
Cool. All right. Well, you getting all of them now?
So, George, I was finishing telling the whole story about the dragonfly incident. I wonder, George, is there any chance your wife is downloading 1,000 movies or something that's taking all your Wi-Fi?
I mean, I'm out in the bar, so maybe it's I'm away from the house. We did it from here last time, and it was okay.
Yeah. All right, George,
so,
we'll plow ahead, and we'll. I don't know. Yeah, we'll plow ahead. So
I can try to go back inside if you want me to.
It might be worth that, George. I hate to do it, but because you're going to have to leave Ricky's room. All right.
Yes, I am.
Here we go. George is
I don't know,
on the move.
This is still bad?
It's pretty bad, George. When you watch it, you'll go,
bad.
"Oh, now I know what you're talking about." Yeah, you can always try and switch to cellular, George.
I'm on the move, baby.
Okay, we'll see how it happens. So George went to the restaurant, and they basically said, "Yeah, okay, a dragonfly's in your salad. What do you want us to do about it?" And so they were even. Oh, it's a beautiful day in lovely North Hollywood, George.
Here we go. Is that better?
Yeah, let's see. I think that we'll see.
I'm inside now.
Yeah. Is there any way you can sit on the router? Let's see. Yeah, that's good, George. I think that's good.
That better?
I think so. Yes. Look for a nice place for complimentary lighting.
so we can see the mustache.
All right. Can we, I have to talk to my wife. I have to kick her out of the den now because I'm in here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a thousand times better, George.
Is it good? Okay.
Yep. Okay. Now we can have a conversation. Great. And people taking drink requests also. Some wild turkey and Coke, if possible.
Yeah. Wild turkey and soda is what I'm having. But
okay. And what is your club soda? You mean just?
Yeah. Here, hold on. Let me set up.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna have to take a Dramamine. Well, this is exciting to see it coming in.
There we go. This is fun, huh? This is live show business, huh? Let's see if this is any better. How's that lighting? Terrible?
The lighting isn't great, but the signal is phenomenal. All right. So we're going to talk about, okay, Karen, Wild Turkey is a bourbon, and Wild Turkey makes something called a 101, which is 101 proof. And so last night, George texted me a picture of a full bottle, and I don't know what's happened to the bottle, but it's a very, very old school American bourbon. Yes, George, 1,000.
Better, right?
Yes, no comparison. Yes, thank you for all these suggestions. Great. A fish tank, reminiscent of
fish tank background.
The box of water episode.
Real fish tank.
Nice, George. All right. Wow, George. Okay.
How's that, better?
And to be honest, George.
Yeah.
It was just so, it would have been impossible to conduct the interview because you were cutting out too much. All right, great. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. All right, so George, let's go back again. I'm just going to I've already finished talking about the dragonfly, which when I posted those pictures, but they didn't come up. So I'm going to show this again, and then we're going to move on to Sleepover at Peggy's. That's your back, and that's
the
Tucker.
Back of my head.
Yeah, and that's Tucker. And that's you're being called in with the emergency of a dragonfly in the stars salad, which looks exactly like that. And
there it is.
Yep. And I have to say,
a substantial dragonfly. It's large.
If you're going to get something in your if you're going to get something in your salad, the dragonfly might be the worst thing because the thought of biting into a dragonfly is hideous.
Right. You remember what the guy told me, right?
Go ahead and reiterate, George.
The guy at the restaurant told me that we should be happy because dragonflies meant that the lettuce was very fresh because there was bugs in it, and we should be happy about it.
So we owe him. Hey, go to this restaurant because the bugs love the salad. It's so fresh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
He said he's Italian, and he went, no, he's good. He's the best. What are you talking about like that?
So here, I'm just going to answer one quick question here. Lisa Jane says, I'm curious, why did Ray's height differ so much when standing next to Robert? Because Robert is 6'8" and Ray is 6'1". That's why their height differed so much. So Robert, Robert is enormous. So
need 4 apple boxes.
Yes, and an apple box, for those of you who know, an apple box is something they use on stage in Hollywood. They named it after an apple box, but it's I have 3 within arm's reach. Maybe I can bring one up, George, when you start doing a long monologue. An apple box, they make a nickname for an apple box. It was called a man maker. And so in the old days, they would say, we need a man maker when there were short leading actors in there. You don't hear that term so much, but it can stand in upright and sideways. And when it's upright, it's called a New York. When it's the medium height, it's Chicago. And when it's already flat, there you go. A little bit of trivia about what an apple box is, a building block of here. Hold on, George. I'm going to show you here. This is a little grip detour. This is an apple box, everybody.
Tom Cruise uses them a lot.
That's an apple box, and they're indispensable. And they use them on sets, and I'm in a set right now, and so they use them all the time. All right, that was George's jokes. Now it's called a Tom Cruise. Great. Alan Ladd. Yes, very short. Karen. Wow, all these names from the past. This is a great audience. So George, you were on the show. We're going to get to Sleepover at Peggy's right away. I'm just summarizing for people. George worked on Rose Raymond from year 2, even though he knew the people from Rose Raymond year 1, and he was there almost till the end because he took a writing job and decided to leave the family as it will be considered. You left us, George, but I just found a picture of you at the finale in the audience. You had to sit in the audience because there was just no room for everybody who had worked on the show to be in. So Jason Gellis was in the audience. Tom McGowan was in the audience. Mike Scully, who wrote on the show, was in the audience. So, but you were at ground zero contact with the writers and Phil and everybody every single day. So you were and we'll get back to Ricky's room. Let's talk Sleepover at Peggy's.
Sure.
Where, because I posted that picture. And just for people who are curious, the rain gets collected and recycled. The water gets recycled, gets in there.
No.
It's a complete system. So it's not like we were all like, hey, where's all this water coming from? So it cycles
Hollywood
through.
Magic, and it's not real snow.
Yeah. But when you see it, it's astounding, right? When you saw that, right? Because you're responsible for however thousands and thousands of dollars that cost to make, that was taken out of probably my pay ultimately. It's very impressive to see that.
It is.
Pulled off, even for us being there. So let's go back.
That was an unusually not prop intensive, but there was a lot of stuff in that show. Like we were in Peggy's house, which we've never been in. There was that tent and how to make the tent work.
Right.
Remember, he was opening a tent was the joke.
Sure.
When she patted him on the ass, he was opening a tent, and the whole tent thing was a big deal to figure out how the tent was going to be set up easily and quickly so we could serve jokes rather than a bunch of putting up a tent for a long time.
Yeah.
It was a pop up. Yeah.
Right, a pop up tent. And just for the people watching, when you're writing a script, when you say he puts up a tent or whatever, we need a reason for him to bend over, and you're putting up a tent. So as small as that seems, when you write that, oh, this will be funny. He puts up a tent. Okay, now there's 4 departments that have to come in and go, what kind of tent is it? I don't know, just put up a tent. Okay, that doesn't help us. Okay, we need a tent that goes up as quickly as possible, but not too quick. Okay, well, do you know what tent you're thinking? I don't know. The funniest tent. Whatever it is. Yeah. So then ultimately that gets kicked up to the line producer, to the budget, and then it goes, and then all of a sudden they go, it's $1,500 for one tent. Okay, I guess so, if they need that tent, so it's not as trivial as it sounds, like some kind of tent. Every single detail has to be worked out, as Lisa Helfrich was here and we were going over some of those other budget stuff. So what made you think of this episode, George?
All right. So that's a interesting, I guess, and complicated story. So as a person that wasn't in the writer's room all the time, not a writer, I kind of looked at it like the U.S. Senate, because I'd been through this process a couple times. And so you have to pick, if you will, a senator, meaning a writer, that can push your stuff forward. You have to run it by a few people first and tell them. And in this case, it was Tucker and it was Steve Scrovan. And I went to them and said, what do you think? And by the way, this isn't the idea for Sleepover with Peggy. It was a different idea. It was the idea that eventually became, is there an episode where a kid doesn't like Ray, or Ray doesn't like I think Cheryl Hines was in it.
Yeah, the annoying kid.
Okay, so I pitched a thing to Scro and to Tucker about the idea that Ray wouldn't like somebody's kid. And then that kind of turned into maybe he wouldn't like the husband of Patty's friend. And we started talking about it. So I wasn't in the room. You don't know if they're going to be in the room, or you'll be in the room and they start talking about it. Because as you know, Tom, conversations just start. And Phil says, oh, what happened to you this weekend? And you start talking about your life. So they start talking about that show that I told Tucker and Scro about to maybe help me get to the next level. And they started talking about it. And then it turned out that sort of spun into a different show than what I had pitched originally. So it's an odd moment, and it happens in Hollywood. Like Scro came out to me and said, look, we're going to do this show. It's not your show, so you're not going to get anything, but we're going to do in this part of it, and became something else. And I think even something from that pitch I had ended up in You Bet, which was a different show.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Peter, I think Peter.
All right, your
Ray
video pausing a little bit, George.
Oh. The scene where Peter and Ray are in barbershop.
A barbershop.
Talking. Yeah, that whatever.
That's You Bet.
One of those. It went into, some of it went into that episode. Anyway, the upshot is, so now I'm standing there in the hallway. I'm just talking to Scro. I've just realized my show's in the toilet and it's done. My big pitch idea. So I go into the writer's room, and as you remember, Tom, we had story ideas on the board. And story ideas were green, right? And then it switched to red when it became an outline, and then black on the story, right?
Yes, there's a white dry erase board that
Right.
Some of them. So just for everybody watching again, this is Tom Caltabiano. I'm talking to George White, who worked on It Rose Raymond, who wrote Sleepover at Peggy's, and also another episode, and was there pretty much for the entire time. So in the writer's room, we had the writer's room was lined with dry erase boards. One of them had all the episodes for the season that we were doing. So those would be, this is a finished episode in certain steps, meaning the first draft is done, the polished is done, the table redraft is done. There's all these iterations that done. And once it's complete, if Ray's read it and rayified, as we call it, there's a little thing there. And then once it's shot, a check mark is once it's shot, then it's a check mark and it's crossed off. But we get to look up on the board at all time. And Steve Scro, it was his nickname, and still is, he was the keeper of the board. And on one of the boards was just ideas, wild ideas. James Bond in Kindergarten was one of Scro's that never got made. Right. I had one that got made called Jazz Records. But what would happen is Phil would say, you would tell a story, not necessarily even saying, hey, I have a pitch idea. And Phil would go, that could be a story. Put it on the board. And it was just 2 words on the board. And maybe something would come of it, or maybe something wouldn't. What George is talking about, he's in the hallway. He has an office. He informally is going to pitch and then formally pitch a show idea. So he comes up with all these ideas. And all of a sudden, we do a couple stories that basically take from his thing and make it to a story. So now he's left out in the cold, and he's like, oh, that's great. I now get no more money. Someone else is writing basically my script. And now I guess, I guess I'll take a second job or something like that. So now.
Yes. And I've been in Hollywood long enough to realize, okay, this happens. Scro's a good guy. He's not trying to take my story. It's just in the room when you start talking about stuff, it goes away a certain way, and you can't stop it from going that way because Phil likes it, and if it's going that way, it goes that way. So anyway, now I'm standing in the hall, and I go, well, what the hell am I going to do? So I walk into the writer's room when you guys go down on the stage or something, and I just look at all those stories on the board that are in green that are just wild ideas.
Right.
And I see Sleepover with Peggy, and I loved, like everyone else did, I loved Amy Aquino as the Girl Scout leader, and that show had already been on. So there was some background there, and I thought, what can I jump into that's easy, that will get done quickly? And so I went into the computer and found all the notes of what there was of Sleepover with Peggy, which there wasn't that much other than maybe those words. Like there's a sleepover with the kids and something goes wrong.
Right.
And so I thought, well, what can I make out of that? So then I started thinking about the story, and I thought about because I love the part where in the other episode where they almost have a fist fight or a physical altercation where she's bullying Ray.
Right.
And I thought, how could we bring that up? What's the next step to that? And as much as maybe it's not politically correct right now, my answer was sexual harassment would be the next funny thing.
How can we escalate it is what you're saying. How can we escalate?
Yes, escalate that. And I thought, and really what I thought of was like jail. Like what would be the next threatening thing
Right.
if you were being bullied by someone in jail? Like, what would
Right.
that be? And of
Right.
course, it would be some kind of sexual harassment. And so that's how we started thinking about the story. And then I went back to Scro and to Tucker and said, what if we did this? And we started talking about what that could be and how that would go. And it
Yeah.
it was fun to do all that. And you know how the episode came out, but
Yeah.
that was how I thought of it.
And I think just so people understand, I've had it. I was sitting in my room working on something, and one of the other writer's assistants came in and said, "Hey, Tom, I kind of started pitching an idea, and it morphed into your pitch show idea." And I was like, "Okay," it's like,
Right.
and it never got made ultimately. But
Right.
what George, I wanted to be clear that George wasn't going, "Here's comedy gold," and we go, "Oh, thanks, George. There's the door,
Right.
and we'll write
Right.
it." So that's not
No,
what happened.
right.
So when there was a creative frenzy, and the best one I can think of is the lateness episode that Scro pitched, because everybody has intense feelings about someone being late or someone being early or someone's always late. So when he said that idea, he goes, I can't remember which side of the equation his wife is on, but I'm always waiting for her is probably that's what it wound up being in the episode. But when he pitched that, everybody was like, "Oh yeah," it instantly came alive. And so if you had a germ of an idea that was in not even the area of lateness, but if it morphs into Ray leaves his wife at home and you can't come into the writer's room and be like, "I really had that idea about," because the train has left the station. And so, and what George said before is important to know. The writers were always very fair. Even if we heard a joke and we go, there's a comedian I know has a similar stand-up joke, we wouldn't do it. We'd be like, okay, let's not do it. And I know that one time, Kevin James used to have this bit he did about muffin tops, of a muffin and a brand muffin, a blueberry muffin. And, he's going to open up a place that sells that. And that appeared on Seinfeld. Now, do we know that a Seinfeld writer saw that and then said, I'm going to do it? Who knows? But, we did an episode of Raymond that was very similar to a Seinfeld episode, the model episode, where Brad gets ripped off as a model, and that was based on a real life experience of Scroban. But Ray and I walked in, I think I told the story before. Ray and I were at a place and Raymond was on by coincidence. Seinfeld was on, and George is getting his picture taken by Kramer, and he's in a shirt. I mean, it looked almost identical to what we did, and we were like, wow, didn't know that episode existed. But somebody might be like, that's awfully similar to the Seinfeld episode. So you pitch the story. So now you go to Phil. I have a good idea, Phil, for the sleepover story.
Oh no. So then that one, and bear in mind, I'd already been through this whole process with Call Me Mom, which made it, we'd already done it. Sleepover Peggy was my second episode. And I had two experiences before that with different writers on Raymond, with I think Kathy Ann Stump, where I had told her an idea, and basically she came out and said, "Oh, well, that just died in the room." Like, she tried it and it didn't work.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, what happens? And I was new then. And I'm like, well, what happens next? And she's like, well, it's just dead. It's not going to work. And so then I got wise to the idea of I needed to maybe go to someone who would advocate for me. Like I said, like the U.S. Senate, like I'm a junior senator where I have to get a senior senator who's always in there to push something for me, because I'm not going to be in there when these conversations start, and I won't be able to advocate for myself.
Right.
So that already happened with Call Me Mom, where that one ended up going and it worked and it was great. And Sleeper with Peggy, now this had happened where my original idea didn't work, and now I had to look for one that would be easy, and I found that one. And I just went back to Scro and said, and to Tucker, I think, and said, okay, what do you guys think? And they liked it. And then we worked on it, like developing the pitch a little bit better, because there was a certain level. Phil was pretty, as our show was, Phil was very detailed about, more than other shows anyway, about something being ready to go and it being, when the pitch was there for it, you be able to explain it pretty good. So we worked on it a little bit. I think did a 2-pager, which you can tell them what a 2-pager is, Tom, like a detailed outline. And so then I went in and Phil put some time aside, and in the whole room, not just to Phil. I went into the whole room and we talked about it, and it became an episode after that. And everyone is so magic and great when you have, 10 funny girls and guys like you, Tom, in the room, and suddenly your idea that was this, okay idea becomes this great thing because now all these people are adding to it, and it turns into something else. And Peggy was just particularly an idea like that, where Call Me Mom, I had most of that already ahead of time, but Sleepover with Peggy wasn't as developed because it was an existing character, an existing storyline, and Phil had a lot of ideas of how to do it and what to do, and we remade it into something really funny after that. Yeah. And so it went good.
And it just for clarity, you look good. Everybody ends up looking better. And so so there is not a competition there. We're going, I don't know, George's script, do we help or do we not help? It doesn't matter. We want a hit show. And so there is no, what your experience is, and it's a rare thing because on some shows, there was no writer's room and they're like, I want George to fail. And I don't want his stroke. Yeah, it's a very, sadly, it's a human nature potential thing. And for us, A, they were all nice people. But B, that when Tom writes a script, it's going to be much better once it goes through the room. Because someone's going to pitch a joke and you go, okay, and vice versa. So you're going to come up with a lot of jokes and go, this is a very funny moment. So then now, George, because this is a perfect conversation, because a lot of people, when the show first started taking off, a lot of people approach me like, I have a show idea, I have an episode idea, and it's very, very hard to get an episode into any TV show. And it's especially hard on a show like Everybody Loves Raymond, where it's not zany ideas. It's really this drilling down into a lot of the mental state of the people. So it's not like, what if Frank inherits a locomotive? We don't do those. Yeah, no. It didn't do those type of shows. And for the most,
can't be Kramer ideas.
Right, which is, I love Seinfeld, and I watch it. I go, oh, to be able to go, let's have the Merv Griffin set in his basement.
Exactly what I was thinking.
That's great.
Exactly.
Let's do that.
You could never do that. Right.
The craziest we ever got was the Eating the Fly, which was based on a real life story. The frog lady, which based on something that happened to Ray's brother in real life. Right. So then George. We go now for the table read, because what happens now for those watching, George and his writing partner have to write a script. They have to write the draft, right? Did you guys write in and turn in and sit in the room? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, first of all, you have to write the whole outline too, which outlines every scene of the script first.
Right. So for the writer, so the people who want to be writers, here's what Phil, and this is what you should do. But George alluded to it before. It's a 2-pager, which means if you watch an episode, think of your favorite episode, Sleepover with Peggy. You have to say, this happens in this scene, this happens. It's almost no dialogue. You're not looking for dialogue. You're looking for what happens in each scene. What happens to Peggy? What happens to Ray? Now, in the next scene, what happens and what happens? The trap when you've never written before is to be like, oh, I'm going to write these jokes and these jokes. Let me write this scene and all the stuff. Nope. And then all of a sudden, Phil might look at that and go, okay, this scene doesn't work. And you go, but I have so many funny jokes in there. Oh, that's great. Save it for your show because nobody cares. Right. Nobody cares about this scene. Right. Yeah. You're writing a big, long scene with Peggy and her friend, all this stuff. So the 2-pager in the scheme of writing is the hardest thing to do, but the most important thing to do. If you nail the story, and the reason why Phil and Ray always had shows that didn't get thrown out, meaning on certain sitcoms, the star would be like, I hate this episode, gone. And they'd have a finished script, gone. Write me a new episode in 48 hours. That never happened because of the process of, you would write a 2-pager. Once you write that 2-pager, now you have to hand it out to everybody in the writer's room. Now the whole writer's room is sitting there going, okay, this bumps for me, meaning I have trouble here. Why doesn't Ray just X, Y, and Z with the Peggy scene? It doesn't make sense. Why you? Oh yeah, okay, maybe we can cover that. So you work out all the specific story points before you start writing a word of dialogue. And also, once you got that nailed, then you can't wait to write the dialogue because you're thinking of jokes and thinking of this, and you're also not going, oh, this isn't going to work. Phil's going to throw out, the entire second half. So you write that 2-pager, which is so hard to do.
It is. The other thing about that, which both Scro and Phil taught me, was that when you're doing that 2-pager, the thing is you have a tendency, like you're saying, to write, and Tom walks in and says this, and then George says this, and then Patty says this, or what Deborah says this. And when you're writing the word says, think about the attitude of what Tom angrily says. Ray is taken aback, whatever the attitude of the character is going to be, because when you're writing the line later, you need to know it's not just they're saying it. How are they saying it? What are they saying? What's their attitude? Phil, all the time, or anything in acting, when they're entering or when they're talking, what's the attitude? Where are they coming from? Especially in our show, where the whole goal was to get everybody in the room at the same time bringing their attitude to the scene. Like Doris enters, what does she bring to it? And what does she feel like? And so you had to think about that in the 2-pager, like you were saying, Tom. That's exactly right.
Well, what ultimately happens is every character has to have a turn in every scene. Meaning, if Ray comes in happy at the beginning and happy at the end of a scene, and there's no change in the character, why do you have that scene?
Right.
Why do you have that scene? You don't have the luxury of having that scene. And if you're watching a movie, you go, oh, I'm kind of not bored. It's because something's not happening to the character of the scene. George, I'm going to just scroll back because we're going to go back to the pick up at the first draft. When you brought Amy in as the cookie lady, did you then decide to have her come in again as she did so well, or was it always down to do 4 episodes? So I'm going to answer for Phil because I don't know the answer and I don't know that George does.
Yeah.
She hit it out of the park, and it's just whatever you could, just like George said, established character who the audience loved and is a big pain. Anytime Ray's life is bad, that's good for the show. So she represented a bad portion of Ray's life. And I don't think we were thinking, or Phil was thinking, that far ahead. And if she was not good, that would have been one and done, as they say. It would have been, she would, just like Andy Kindler and John Manfrotati, they were fantastic. So you would be like, okay, we need a friend in this one. How do we use that? So that is my guess. Whose idea was it to get into Peggy's personal life in this episode? Yeah, you feel a bit sorry for her, which you want. Right. It's kind of like when you find out that a bully has been bullied by his father and is bullying kids on the playground, you have some compassion instead of this is just a bully. So that brings us up, George. Do you even remember how that exploration of her came in to play?
Well, simply because we're writing the 2-pager, writing the outline, and I thought it was enough. Thinking just short term, I guess I thought it was enough to have Ray goes over there and she pats him on the ass, but then Phil said, well, why is she doing that? Like you just said, why is she a bully? What's happened to her? Why is she acting this way? And it's in a general sense too, because she's a pretty extreme character. Why is she this way? And so we had to answer that. And it was great to link it back to the beginning of the episode, because Deborah's sick and Ray's maybe not paying enough attention to her. And that's the same thing echoed in what Peggy and her husband going through trouble. And it got a little, not dark, but like you said, you feel sad, but you need to answer, especially for the actor, why you like this. Because they're going to ask you, why am I acting like this?
Yeah.
An actor's going to ask you that. And I remember, because Amy's such a good actress, and what I remember mostly about her was that she would turn, and because she was so used to doing stage, she would turn out to the audience and say the line rather than to the person she's talking to. She would turn and say it out to the theater, if you will.
Right.
You don't do that in TV. And I remember someone had to give her the direction of like, oh, you need to say this. You look at Ray when you say this, the camera will get you. You don't need to say it out to the audience. because she's, as you know, Amy's a actual, not a, you know what I mean? She's a real actor.
She's a real actor, yeah.
She's done theater and she's a real, you know,
Yes.
studied actor. And so you had to give her a reason of why she was going to do this.
Yeah, which you would for any hopefully any
actor,
well-written script. You know where they're coming from. So when the words, and it pains me to say this, but the words are almost secondary to coming in with that, knowing what is motivating that actor to do anything in a scene, and the audience feels it. The audience feels if you're not true, if you're like, why would they do that? You know, when you're watching a movie and you're going, what happened? How did that person start all of a sudden caring about this? I didn't even, it doesn't even make any sense.
Yep.
So then you write the first draft, George.
Yeah. And then we had the table read.
Well, you write the first draft, then you hand it to Phil, and then Phil gives you notes. Yeah.
Phil gave us notes, and I don't remember too much if we had too many notes. I know there was a discussion, and I hadn't thought about this in a long time, that I think the thing with what we're talking about Peggy's turn was that he said we need one more thing here. We need one more thing in the ending here of why she's like this,
right?
And how it links back to Ray, and so I think that was the thing that Phil added was that part of the ending of what we're talking about, and we added that in, and then the first draft was done, and it started going through the rest of the process of getting to shoot night. Yeah,
and the rest of the process is George hands it to Phil. Phil gives notes. They address the notes. Then once the notes are addressed, big notes or small notes, whatever it is, then it goes to every single writer. We read it, and then we come into the writer's room, and we go from page one. Anybody have anything on page? Any general notes? Anybody? No. Great job, George and Joe. Awesome. Okay, let's start. Page one. Page one. Anybody got anything? No. Page two. Anybody? Yeah, I thought we could do better than this joke. George, do you love that joke? I mean, I kind of do. Okay, you know what, George? It's going to stay in the script, and at the table read, if it doesn't get a laugh, I'm going to give you the stink eye, okay? But it's going to live. Okay, page three, anybody? How about this joke? Oh, that's hysterical. Put it in. That's the rewriting process. Now it goes to the table read, and now you're sitting there. The cast gets it for the first time, and you're watching the show come alive for the first time, you know, and Amy Aquino, obviously, you know, for people that are watching, you wish you could have Amy in every episode. You wish you could have Monica in every, you wish you could have all these people hit home runs, but you just can't have them in every episode. So you're not sitting there going, you know what, I think that's all that we can use her for. You know, if we're like, oh, she's perfect in this episode, you would use her. It's just, there are a lot of stories that were the core family.
Well, yeah, and our shows particularly, we weren't a big, like I'm thinking of Friends or Will and Grace, where every person did a guest cast shot on that. Every person you can think of. And our guest cast list was maybe, 20 people? And they weren't super famous people either. It was the Amy Kinos and Catherine Hellmans and Bob Culps and, people that are great actors, but not super recognizable famous people. We weren't that show.
Well, it also hurts you, and it's funny because if you go back and watch I Love Lucy's, William Holden is in it, but he's perfect in this one episode of I Love Lucy because Lucy sees William Holden in the Brown Derby and goes crazy, and so sometimes if you have too big of a personality, as Lisa said last time she was on, it hurts the show because all of a sudden it's like, I'm not buying that character. That's, but now we have the table read. And how did you feel, George? I know it's your second one.
The table read I remember the table read going good. The thing that mostly moving ahead a little bit here that I remember about this episode in particular was that, and you can maybe remember better than me, Tom, suddenly everybody was sick. Everyone had a cold. Like Doris had a cold, Peter had a cold. And in fact, the best line in the script, I thought, came from John Manfrotati as, what's his character's name?
Johnny,
makes sense.
Johnny, yeah. Italian spelling of Johnny.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be when Ray came back after this incident, that was supposed to be that Peter was there. He's not in that scene, right? We had to get Johnny and Brad because Peter was sick. And that line where I thought Manfrotati did so well when he said, "Hey, did she offer you a glass of wine?" Or whatever that line, right?
Yeah.
Did she, and
Yes,
that,
yeah.
I didn't write that. Like we thought of that because it
Yes.
kind of changed. Because maybe Johnny would say that, but Peter wouldn't, or Frank wouldn't. And so it became that line, and it kind of became funnier because suddenly it was more of a guys in a frat house hassling you rather than your dad and your brother. And so that scene changed a lot because Peter had a cold and couldn't shoot the scene. Or like we ended up real short on people. Like Doris is barely in that episode, I think, because she was sick, right?
Yeah. George, you're like, it's like you're going into the World Series and you're like, wait, my pitcher's down and my number 4 hitter is out. What the heck?
Two people down here. We're like,
yeah. But that's,
Mm.
it's great to hear that behind the scenes thing, because that's why the audience wants, Peter to get those zingers in. But Manfrotati hit a home run with that, and it made sense coming from him. By the way, okay, so let me just answer this question, because George, what I feared would happen has happened.
Yes.
We have 9 minutes left.
Yeah.
Okay. So once again, you're going to get that text from me, and you're going to either block my number, or you go, okay, I'll do it again, Tom.
Or drink more wild turkey.
Yeah. How are you liking that wild turkey 101?
I love the 101. As you said about the Jack Daniels ride, one of the best booze deals out there.
Oh yeah. Hold on. Let me drink I'll drink my non-alcoholic coffee beverage.
Sure. Yeah. That's just coffee. Nothing's in there.
Yeah. That's the Somebody Feed Phil. For those of you that haven't seen Somebody Feed Phil on Netflix, it's backwards, but it says "Life short, talk with your mouth full." So George, now, and that episode comes out great, by the way. We filmed it.
I remember thinking, though, that because of what we're talking about, it was certainly a non-traditional Raymond episode where, Patty's barely in it. And Doris and Peter aren't in it at all. Was Frank in that episode at all? I'm not sure. Do you remember?
No, our fans will remember.
Yeah, I don't think he was. Like, I think he was sick and he couldn't talk. He couldn't.
Yeah,
he had a sore throat or something. I don't think he's in it at all. And
Donnell is saying that Peter's not in that episode.
Yeah, and the interesting part
Donnell's saying Peter's not in that episode. Yeah,
it's a different kind of episode where you're not. You know how when you don't see that set they're always on with the stairs and the sofa and the kitchen. And it was this episode where we were out of the Raymond world, if you will, which was a very small world. We're at Peggy's house. There was different, it was a different kind of episode, but I thought a good one just because of the subject matter of, and also like you mentioned earlier, which I completely forgotten, the thing with the rain where Ray locks his keys in the car, where he's hitting the top of the car. Just the fact we had a car on the set. We never had a car on the set except when they backed through the wall. I mean, just that kind of stuff we didn't do. And so this was a pretty big episode for us in terms of moving parts and props and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And we had a car a few times, but maybe just a handful of times in 9 years,
Yeah.
And that's why we compared, when you compare us to Seinfeld or Friends, the amount of outside cast, different scenes, Seinfeld would have 40 scenes in a script. We would have sometimes 2 scenes. Like the Golf Fort episode was 2 scenes, the beginning and then the last scene. Yeah. Which is
past scene H, right? In the alphabet, like never went past, A, B,
Right.
H.
So George, only because people were very curious about Ricky's room, I wanted to paint this picture. When you work on a show, it's 130 people, and there's a lot of, in any organization, a lot of good information happens in informal get-togethers. Like all of a sudden, there's this person talking to this person who has no contact in the day-to-day life. And so one of the pictures that I posted is of the original Ricky's room. Now, it's not a great photo because it's a APS-C film proof sheet. It's a smaller film, and above it, it's not in it, but it's Ray and Kevin and Ray's wife going to the Emmys. Okay, so it must have been September, but the picture is Ricky's room, and I think on the right is Pat the editor. Then there's Lisa, who was in casting. Then Aaron, Champion, who worked for Phil directly. And then I think 2 of your friends are in it as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But the bar, because I know that Warner Brothers is like a city. Warner Brothers has, I think, 3,000 to 5,000 people at any time in the city, on the set. Sorry, on the lot.
Yeah.
And so, and they have a motor department. They have gas pumps. They have, it's almost like a little military camp.
They have a sawmill.
They have a sawmill to build set. Yeah. But they don't have a bar.
They do not.
There is no bar on the lot. Now, I've been to Pixar and they have like 7 bars there. I've been to DreamWorks. They have like a hidden bar there. And the function, because it sounds frivolous, but I think when you would go to Ricky's room, which was, for those that are first joining us, this is Tom Caldabiano. I'm talking to George White. George White had a room in his house called Ricky's room, which was actually a guy named Ricky's room. And George converted it into a bar with a booth. And it was, I think it was a violation of I think they wrote new fire codes because of your bar in your house.
Yeah.
The amount of people you could squeeze in there was amazing. But you would have, if you're working in a company or something, and you want to find out something that's wrong, listen to what the people are talking about when they socialize,
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can cure a problem. So it's not on the surface. It's like, okay, yeah, go out and drink. Yeah, we know what going out and drinking does, but it does have a function. And I know that across, and if people look this up, across from Warner Brothers is an old place called the Smokehouse, and it's red booths, and it's all. And I know Clooney, who was next to us on I think he was stage 11 at the Warner Brothers lot when he was filming a show called ER. He loved the Smokehouse. He would go over there and hang. And what's funny is we were closer to the Smokehouse than his stage. We never, if ever, went to the Smokehouse. It was a rare occasion to go to the Smokehouse.
And by the way, does he love it? His production company is called Smokehouse Productions.
George Clooney's is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't even think of George, and it's not even the drinking fact, it's the socializing. And Seinfeld, at the end of Seinfeld, they would go to something called Jerry's Famous Deli, and they would just sit there and eat and hang out after such a long day, but you're decompressing. So the Ricky's room, it's such a great place. George, I hope this is still your first drink, because we only have, okay.
Well, I had to leave the bar, so I couldn't pour another one. I would have had 3 by now. But
I'd like to say that was a plan to get you away from the booze, because we know what happens. Yes. Oh, yes. By the way, Warner Brothers does have their own fire department, and I was giving Paul Rubens a ride in the
Right.
golf cart, and he pointed out, if you look up online, the Warner Brothers Fire Department has an Art Deco WBFD. Now, for a time, Warner Brothers was in trouble, and I think in the 70s, it was called the Burbank Studios.
It was.
They pulled the Warner Brothers logo. And so when he was shooting Pee-wee's Big Adventure, he said they uncovered those letters had been, spackled over. And if you look now, you know what? I'll try next time on the Warner Brothers lot. I'll take a picture and post it for those watching. So yes, thank you for pointing that out. Thanksgiving in Canada for these. Tina, is it Thanksgiving in Canada right now? Is that what it is? What is your single malt Scotch brand, or do you stick to the corn squeezings? Wow, that's a great.
I'm a bourbon guy. I stick to the corn squeezings.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a bourbon guy.
What's funny is Phil had us join a single malt whiskey society on Everybody Loves Raymond. So we were the Raymond writers, and we would go to these functions where guys wore skirts and just pouring malt whiskey, not other functions where guys wore skirts. And so, but we took a liking to this obscure brand, Inchmuren. We just loved it. And no one's ever heard of it unless you're in Scotland, etc. Yes. Okay. So final few questions, George, before we ask you to come back again.
Sure.
Marie was in the last few scenes. She comes to pick him up, and he'll never do that again. Great. Yep.
She comes running through the door. Right.
Yep. Yeah. Great. Rain an issue with the sound? No. Nope. Because it was in there. And I don't think he had to EDR. Good question, though. Yeah. The rain thing. I'm going to have Ken Shapiro on also, and whoever was in charge of that, and even for us. That was amazing to see. Even us in show business, when we walk down on stage, we're like, well, look at that. A complete exterior of a house and a rainstorm right here where Frank and Marie's house usually are.
Right.
Yes, did I say you can visit Warner Brothers? Yes, you can go. I recommend it. The Warner Brothers VIP tour. It's kind of pricey, but it's absolutely worth it. And I know that we're at the end of our time, George, because you're trying to get anything off of those ice cubes. I'm just trying to suck right out of it. Yes, that's really fine. George, do me a favor. I'm going to see if this will hold it. Hold that glass up. I'm going to smile so I can get a good screen grab. Make sure you don't block your face. Yep. Oh, that's good. It's a sad empty glass. Great, George. Maybe in there.
Well,
we'll get
I had to move because of technical problems.
Yeah. I don't want to shame you for not drinking. So yes, you need to come back again. This wasn't enough time. I'm reading a comment, George. That's not me saying that. George, do you still watch ELR? And what is your favorite episode? Says Karen.
Oh my God. No, I'm fine. Thank you. Why, that was my lovely wife seeing if I wanted another drink.
Oh, that is very nice. That is very nice. Hello, Teresa in Chicago. Yeah, your favorite episode.
God, mine are, of course, good, but I love Lucky Suit. Like everybody, I love Lucky Suit. I love The Bird. I love the Thanksgiving episode.
Right.
And I'll tell you something at the end there. Pat Smokes, just the heavy metal puzzle, the fact that she smokes is just such a, those are the three that come. I mean, I love so many, but those three come to mind as stuff that are, I loved Fred Willard just so much, just in general. But he was just so, I was thinking, I'll have to tell it another time. I went and looked through my ideas and I came up and I was going to pick, it was his character was Hank, right?
Right.
I was going to pitch a Hank episode, kind of like Pat Smokes, where we find out some stuff about Hank, and I found it, and I'll tell you about it later. But it was a very funny episode. I wish we'd gotten to it. Yeah. Now this is that's great. Yeah, I look forward to hearing it, and I think just the fact that Pat smoked. I think Tucker wrote that one. Yeah, that's the end of the series, and it's one of the best episodes. The fact that that's why it's so sad that we had to end the show. We'll get into another reason. Here's a final question. I know the answer to this from my perspective. Who was the one person you were shocked to learn was an ELR fan? Does anyone? I can tell you. I was watching a clip. You can find it online, and it's one of the band members from One Direction was talking about how he watches Everyone's Raymond every morning. And I was like, that is a shock to me because he's not of the right demographic. He's not, he was probably 2 years old when the show premiered. Yeah. But he was like, I love that. I know Barack Obama loved the show. Phil can tell these stories of Michelle Obama telling him that. And Spielberg loved the show. But was there anyone, George, that you can think of? Now, I because you said One Direction, I can't remember the name of the band. It's a band. They're from Orange County. They were from the early 90s. And God, I'm trying to remember their song now, and I can't remember it. Damn it. Oh. I can't remember. And they came to the show one night. And you know who I'm talking about? Of course. So this, by the way, we're circling the thing because Larry Babbitts loved him, loved the band. And what band is it? And the lead singer I came. So here's the only way I'll remember it. Yeah. Because he has a hot sauce. Oh, he does. Okay.
The lead singer has a hot
Hot
sauce.
sauce. Yeah.
So you know what? Before we hang up, maybe somebody will guess because I can't remember, and I can see the guy Offspring.
Offspring. Boom. That's
Yes.
exactly. Offspring.
Thank you,
fan.
Gary.
The whole band came to the show. Like,
Yes.
they were an audience, and I'm like, oh, those are the guys in the Offspring. They love this, really?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and so did the guys from South Park. They came to the show. So did Mickey Dolenz, who was one of the Monkees, came to the show. And so, yeah, we had a.
And the biggest night of all, remember this, because I'm a huge Kiss fan. Remember that, because Paul Stanley, the singer for Kiss, his then wife, who's Pamela Bowden, she was in the high school episode.
Okay.
She's in that episode. She's the girl Ray's going back to see in his high school reunion.
Oh, to apologize to.
And she's married to Paul Stanley, and suddenly Paul Stanley's in our audience. It's the biggest thrill of my life. I was like, oh my God,
George,
Paul Stanley's here.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
did he come on stage?
He did. After the show, we were hanging around talking. But the funny story with it was that, so we're sitting there, and I want a reason to talk to him. So Jason, at the time, Jason and I, our job was to be DJs and play songs in between when you or Mark were talking to the audience.
Right.
And so I said, Jason, put on Rock and Roll All Night so I have a reason to turn around and talk to Paul. So I turn around and talk to him, and I want to ask him a million questions. Like, I'm a fan. I want to be asking about songs. But he and Pamela have a little kid, which was now he's 20-something, Evan. And Evan's like 4 years old. And I'm trying to talk to Paul and ask him questions. And Evan just keeps, like, suddenly Paul's not a rock star anymore. He's a dad. Like, the kid's, like, poking his face and going, Daddy, Daddy, like that. And so finally I have to give up, and I go, does he want any ice cream? And Paul goes, that'd be great. Can you get him some? And I go get ice cream for Evan Stanley.
By the way, George, only because we're gonna get into raising money for a telethon length of show here. But
yes, sorry, yeah.
I should add that you were also the lead or the drummer, and you have been a lead singer of a glam rock band in the day, and still occasionally perform. So you're not just a guy who goes up to Paul Stanley and says, I bought all your albums. You could have gone up and say, I was this close to knocking Kiss off the charts. You know that, right? And you go, oh, that's great. Can you get some ice cream for my kid? But I don't. Yeah, I don't have a picture of Paul Stanley, and until you just said it now, I didn't know he was on stage. But I might have a picture of him in the audience if I took a picture of the audience, because I did take a lot of pictures because Saul, Better Call Saul, Bob Odenkirk was on our show then, right?
Oh yeah, right,
yeah, which was, then he exploded into something. So Offspring, the band Offspring, George's band. What is the name of your band from back then, George?
Oh, back then my band was called Shady Character.
Shady Character. All right.
Shady Character.
You don't even have to explain why.
To fans, Shadcar.
Oh yes, the Shadcar. I see those T-shirts all around. David Letterman. I'm just answering really quickly. David Letterman. Yes, Dexter is the lead singer's name. I have a picture of him with Larry, our craft services guy. David Letterman produced the show, never, ever came on set.
Nope.
Ray and I, we had dinner with him twice when he came out to L.A., and then we shot something in his office once, Letterman. But he never, he never had a relationship with Ray. It's not like he and Ray hung out ever. And even I've posted a picture. We were backstage and we ran in, and we ran into Letterman in this little bottleneck at Letterman's backstage. And I asked to take a picture, and Letterman goes, what do you have, a photographer with you now, Ray? I already had dinner with Letterman, but it was years before. And Ray and Dave was, Ray was like, no. And, Ray doesn't like me taking pictures. Anyway, he's not, when we would go out, he'd be like, and I would be taking pictures, he would say to everybody, this isn't my photographer and this isn't my idea, and I don't want pictures taken, just because he didn't want people to think that Ray Romano is a guy who's like, I should have a photographer follow me around and just documenting my life because it's so interesting. Ray is a very humble, nice guy. So when we ran into Letterman, I said, Dave, do you mind if I take a picture? And he was making fun the whole time. But it's the only picture that Ray has of him and Letterman. Now, George, if I backed you and you created a show that made me $100 million, I would probably take you to dinner a few times or hang out. How's it going, George? I'm rich now because of you.
Right. Oh my God! I remember Phil said, like, you and Phil, or maybe Phil and Ray, had dinner with Letterman, and we came back and we're like, "How did it go? Did he like the show?" And Phil's like, "I don't know. I really don't know if he likes our show. Or I have no idea."
Well, when we ate with Letterman, it was at a place called Granita in Malibu. Right. And all he talked about, Letterman, was racing, race car driving, and racing in this kart race series. So it was sitting there because for me, he's a hero, but all we talked about was when you come into turn 2 and you know what I mean? That's all it was. It wasn't like, I'm liking, it was zero comedy talk. And as opposed to Leno, who I've spent a little bit of time with, all right, George, we are at 1 hour and 11 minutes of pure joy for this audience. Please come back. Please come back again. Is it possible that your wife is saying hello and watching? Hello, Jen. Is that possible?
Maybe. I don't know. She's watching football, but yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. And I noticed you have a Miami Dolphins shirt on, so I don't want to take.
Rough day. So need more of this.
That's all right. George, I'll see you again next time.
Yes.
And I think we've learned about the internet here. I've posted some of those pictures of Ricky's room. I want to invite, yes, Karen, we will get George a Wi-Fi booster. We'll take up a collection. And I wish I could race down to your house, which is only about a mile from me, and drink with you, but maybe another day, George.
Whenever you want.
Yes, I love it. All right, George, a pleasure as always. Great job. Yes. I will see you again very soon, and I will post some more photos that I've found of you that you have never seen. So, thank you. Yes, thank you very much, everybody. We will see you again. Thanks for all the great comments. Don't forget to write your questions. I try and answer them as if I can't live, I do write occasional answers when I can get around to it. But I love it. I love the support, and keep up spreading the word about our Instagram. We've just reached 16,000 followers, which is great. All right, and Guy Langostino, George. It's a character you do.
Yes, Guy Langostino is a character I do. Please go to TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram and go to Guy Langostino and check out what I'm doing. I think you'll like it.
It's funny, tongue in cheek, and not even tongue in cheek. It's you'll see. You got to watch. You got to see.
You'll see. Go check it out.
All right, George. See you soon.
See you soon. Mwah.